hearth was made tidy. He showed Alice how to wash out a cloth, and Humphrey how to dust the chairs. They all worked merrily, while little Edith stood and clapped her hands. But just before dinner was ready, Edward came in and said, "There are troopers galloping in the forest." Jacob went out and observed that they were coming in a direction that would lead near to the cottage. He walked in, and after a moment's thought he said, "My dear children, those men may come and search the cottage. You must do as I tell you, and mind that you are very quiet. Humphrey, you and your sisters must go to bed, and pretend to be very ill. Edward, take off your coat and put on this old hunting frock of mine. You must be in the bedroom attending your sick brother and sisters. Come, Edith, dear, you must play at going to bed, and have your dinner afterward." Jacob took the children into the bedroom, and, removing the upper dress, which would have betrayed that they were not the children of poor people, put them in bed, and covered them up to the chins with the clothes. Edward had put on the old hunting shirt which came below his knees, and stood with a mug of water in his hand by the bedside of the two girls. Jacob went to the outer room to remove the platters laid out for dinner, and he had hardly done so when he heard the noise of the troopers, and soon afterward a knock at the cottage door. "Come in," said Jacob. "Who are you, my friend?" said the leader of the troop, entering the door. "A poor forester, sir," replied Jacob, "under great trouble." "What trouble, my man?" "I have the children all in bed with the smallpox. Nevertheless, we must search your cottage." "You are welcome," replied Jacob, "but don't frighten the children if you can help it." The man, who was now joined by others, commenced his search. Jacob opened all the doors of the rooms, and they passed through. Little Edith shrieked when she saw them, but Edward patted her and told her not to be frightened. The troopers, however, took no notice of the children. They searched thoroughly, and then came back to the front door. "It's no use remaining here," said one of the troopers. "Shall we be off? I'm tired and hungry with the ride." "So am I, and there's something that smells well," said another. "What's this, my good man?" continued he, taking off the lid of the pot. "My dinner for a week," replied Jacob. "I have no one to cook for me now, and I can't light a fire every day." "Well, you appear to live well, if you have such a mess as this every day in the week. I should like to try a spoonful or two." "And welcome, sir," replied Jacob. "I will cook some more for myself." The troopers took him at his word. They sat down to table, and very soon the whole contents of the kettle had disappeared. Having satisfied themselves, they got up, told him that his rations were so good that they hoped to call again, and, laughing heartily, they mounted their horses and rode away. "Well," said Jacob, "they are very welcome to the dinner. I little thought to get off so cheap." As soon as they were out of sight, Jacob called to Edward and the children to get up again, which they soon did. Alice put on Edith's frock, Humphrey put on his jacket, and Edward pulled off the hunting shirt. "They're gone now," said Jacob, coming in from the door. "And our dinners are gone," said Humphrey, looking at the empty pot and dirty platters. "Yes, but we can cook another, and that will be more play, you know," said Jacob. "Edward, go for the water. Humphrey, cut the onions. Alice, wash the potatoes, and Edith, help everybody, while I cut up some more meat." "I hope it will be as good," observed Humphrey. "What did the other smell so nice?" "Quite as good, if not better, for we shall improve by practice, and we shall have a better appetite to eat it with," said Jacob. "Nasty men eat our dinner," said Edith. "Shan't have any more. Eat this ourselves." And so they did as soon as it was cooked, but they were very hungry before they sat down. "This is jolly," said Humphrey, his mouth full. "Yes, Master Humphrey, I doubt if King Charles eats so good a dinner as this. Mr. Edward, you are very grave and silent." "Yes, I am, Jacob. Have I not cause? Oh, if I could but have mauled those troopers! But you could not, so you must make the best of it. They say that every dog has his day, and who knows but King Charles may be on the throne again." There were no more visits to the cottage that day. They all went to bed and slept soundly. The next morning Jacob, who was most anxious to learn the news, saddled the pony, having first given his instructions to Edward how to behave in case any troopers should come to the cottage. He told him to pretend that the children were in bed with the smallpox, as they had done the day before. Jacob then travelled to Gossip Allwood's, and he there learned that King Charles had been taken prisoner and was at the Isle of Wight. and that the troopers were all going back to London as fast as they came. Feeling that there was now no more danger to be apprehended from them, Jacob set off as fast as he could for Lymington. He went to one shop and purchased 2 peasant dresses which he thought would fit the 2 boys. At another he bought similar apparel for the 2 girls. Then, with several other ready-made articles and some things which were required for the household, he made a large package, which he put upon the pony, and taking the bridle set off home, and arrived in time to superintend the cooking of the dinner, which was this day venison steaks fried in a pan and boiled potatoes. The dinner was over. He opened his bundle and told the little ones that, now they were to live in a cottage, they ought to wear cottage clothes, and that he had brought them some to put on, which they might rove about the woods in, and not mind tearing them. Alice and Edith went into the bedroom, and Alice dressed Edith and herself, and came out quite pleased with their change of dress. Humphrey and Edward put on theirs in the sitting-room. They were all fitted pretty well, and certainly they were becoming to the children. "Now, recollect, you are all my grandchildren," said Jacob, "for I shall no longer call you Miss and Master. That we never do in a cottage. You understand me, Edward, of course?" added Jacob. Edward nodded his head, and Jacob, telling the children that they might now go out of the cottage and play, they all set off, quite delighted with clothes which procured them their liberty. We must now describe the cottage of Jacob Armitage, in which the children have in future to dwell. As we said before, it contained a large sitting-room or kitchen, in which was a spacious hearth and chimney, table, stools, cupboards, and dressers. The 2 bedrooms which adjoined it were now appropriated, one for Jacob and the other for the 2 boys. The third or inner bedroom was arranged for the 2 girls, as being more retired and secure. But there were outhouses belonging to it all, a stall in which White Billy the pony lived during the winter, a shed and pigsty rudely constructed, with an enclosed yard attached to them, and it had moreover a piece of ground of more than an acre, well fenced in to keep out the deer and game, the largest portion of which was cultivated as a garden and potato ground, and the others, which remained in grass, contained some fine old apple and pear trees. Such was the domicile. The pony, a few fowls, a sow, and 2 young pigs, and the dog Smoker, were all the animals on the establishment. Here Jacob Armitage had been born, for the cottage had been built by his grandfather. But he had not always remained at the cottage. When young, he felt an inclination to see more of the world, and had for several years served in the army. His father and brother had lived in the establishment at Arnwood, and he was constantly there as a boy. The chaplain of Arnwood had taken a fancy to him, and taught him to read. Writing he had not acquired. As soon as he grew up, he served, as we have said, in the troop commanded by Colonel Beverley's father, and after his death Colonel Beverley had procured him the situation of forest ranger, which had been held by his father, who was then alive, but too aged to do duty. Jacob Armitage married a good and devout young woman, with whom he lived several years, when she died, without bringing him any family, after which, his father being also dead, Jacob Armitage had lived alone until the period at which we have commenced this history. End of chapter 3.